Oren from Israel this morning, former member of the Knesset, former Israeli ambassador to the United States, and friend of Joseph Brodecki, who I met last night, Michael. He said hello. He knew you would be on today. Good morning. How are you, Dr. Oren?
Good, and best to Joe. Mixed feelings today. On one hand, a political morass in this country. Doesn't seem to be any exit from it. The going joke here, Hugh, is that we should skip the third election and go right to the fourth. Not waste time. And joy over the president's directive signed at the Hanukkah ceremony, recognizing Jews as a people, which for the nation state of the Jewish people is kind of tautological, but very important in the fight against anti-Semitism, particularly on American campuses.
Well, let's focus on the elections. There's been quite a lot of conversation. Jared Kushner had a great piece on the EO in the New York Times yesterday. I understand that the prime minister has resigned his ministerial jobs. Who has replaced him? Is Michael Oren's phone ringing? Who's he putting into those jobs?
No. He's placing people in his own party. And this is, it's a sort of a patronage system. One of his biggest rivals is a gentleman named Israel Katz, who's actually number one on the Likud list after Netanyahu. He's become the foreign minister, though he doesn't speak a word of any other language other than Hebrew. And Naftali Bennett, from a different party, a more right-wing party, has become a defense minister. So this is a way of sort of laying the groundwork for holding together sort of the right-wing bloc of 55 members of Knesset facing the next round of elections.
Now, explain to the American audience, who has the decision on war and peace if Israel is threatened either from the south by Hamas or by the north from Hezbollah?
That's an excellent question, and it's one which I've been raising here, and I haven't heard it being raised by anybody else. You should know, Hugh, because in theory, there is a government. It has a security cabinet, which is a select group of Israeli ministers that meets to decide precisely that, war and peace. But the question is, if they have to make fateful decisions of life and death that could involve the safety and perhaps even the survival of thousands of Israelis, do they have the moral authority? Do they have the political legitimacy to make those decisions? And certainly in the aftermath of any war, people will come back afterward and say, hey, who empowered you guys to make these decisions? You were not elected. So I think that this political situation, besides causing a disarray in certain areas of Israeli society, also sends a message to our enemies that we may not be as capable of making those fateful decisions as we were in the past.
Now, Michael Oren, we have these tectonic plates of blue and white and Likud pressing against each other. That can't last. There's got to be an earthquake. Which of those parties shatters first?
Well, Likud can't shatter because Likud has been around for many, many decades. And as people say here, Likud is not a party. It's a family. Blue and white has been put together, cobbled from three different parties that actually have very little in common except for their total opposition to Benjamin Netanyahu. That's what they're about. They're about taking down Netanyahu. And to a lesser extent, standing up to the ultra-Orthodox parties. And so, ideally, Benny Gantz could have taken his faction out and struck a deal with Netanyahu, but that would have gone against the very raison d'etre of his party, which is taking down Netanyahu. So, just in terms of structure, blue and white is structurally far more vulnerable than the Likud could ever be.
How will that manifest itself, if it manifests itself?
Well, because the Likud is set to have primaries, and there is a challenger to Benjamin Netanyahu, Gideon Sa'ar, a young and very capable politician. He's the only one who's coming up and really challenging Netanyahu. And Netanyahu's closest political allies are trying to prevent the holding of primaries precisely for that reason. But at the end of the day, Hugh, everybody in the Likud knows that Likud, headed by Benjamin Netanyahu, receives between 32 and 35 seats in Knesset. Likud, without Benjamin Netanyahu, goes down to around 12.
Wow. So they have no choice. And now, what about the trial? When does he actually stand trial, if he stands trial?
No one knows yet. The date has not been set. But one thing is certain, that this does redound to Netanyahu's benefit. He will now be prime minister for another 4 months. And as I said repeatedly on your show, Netanyahu has to appear in court as prime minister. With that, if he's not prime minister, he'll have to resign, and he'll have immunity stripped from him, and he'll be very vulnerable to prosecution.
But since he is prime minister, there will be no court proceeding before March. Is that how it works?
No, there could be a court proceeding, but he'll appear in court as prime minister.
Okay, I got it. So then, is it possible that that resolves before the election?
It is possible. I have no way of knowing how long these proceedings will case, and I think that maybe someone in Netanyahu's camp has every interest in drawing out the proceedings. But I don't know. Nobody knows. I know those are the three words that nobody wants to hear an analyst say, and the analysts certainly hate saying them. Nobody knows. And today there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty here. There's just one thing I am certain of, and that is that the image of Israel that is incapable of getting its political act together is not good for us.
That is absolutely true. But like I say, eventually one of those plates shatters. You can't keep up this pressure. 3 elections in a year. Wow. And skipping it just to go to the 4th. I agree with you. Michael Oren, always a pleasure.